Hello everyone, and welcome to Anime Dreams. This channel is dedicated to exploring anime theories, fanfiction concepts, and creative interpretations from the worlds we all love. Here, we dive deeper into characters, alternate possibilities, and what-if scenarios that make anime even more exciting. In today's video, we're exploring an interesting fan theory, Mini Minato Naruko. What if certain events unfolded differently? How would the story change, and what new possibilities could arise in the Naruto universe? Let's break down the theory and imagine a whole new perspective together. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is created for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in these videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now that that's out of the way, let's get started. 6 years old. It was the 10th of October, the day the 4th Hokage had given her life to protect the village from the terrible nine-tailed fox spirit long ago. The villagers remembered the day with quiet ceremonies and glowing bonfires. But for one small child living in a modest apartment on the edge of the village, the day meant something else entirely. It was Naruko Uzumaki's 6th birthday. The soft crackling of distant bonfires and the murmur of voices drifted through the window. Naruko sat at her little table, her bright golden hair slightly messy as she watched a chocolate cake she had baked all by herself. The apartment was quiet. Very quiet. Naruko had learned to pay attention to quiet places. Even though she was only 6, she was unusually aware of the world around her. It was a skill she had slowly developed over time, almost like she could feel when someone nearby carried a special kind of energy. The 3rd Hokage, whom she lovingly called Gigi, always tried to make sure she was safe. He was kind to her, but he was also very busy taking care of the whole village. So Naruko spent many days on her own. Still, she wasn't completely alone. For a long time now, she had noticed a presence nearby. Someone who watched over her from the shadows. The person's energy felt cool and steady, like the calm air before snowfall. Naruko secretly thought of that person as Wolf-san. She had never seen him clearly, but she knew he was there. Tonight, though, the quiet felt heavier than usual. Naruko poked the cake gently with her fork. It smelled delicious, but she didn't feel very hungry. Birthdays were supposed to be days filled with laughter and friends. At least, that was what the storybooks said. She sighed softly. Then, gathering her courage, she looked toward the window and spoke. "Hello?" The room felt still for a moment. "Why don't you come out, Wolf-san?" she added politely. Suddenly, the presence vanished. Completely. Naruko blinked. Her chest tightened, and her eyes began to sting. Maybe she shouldn't have said anything. Maybe she had scared him away. "I just wanted to share some cake," she murmured, staring down at the table. Just then. Knock knock. Naruko's head lifted immediately. She felt it again. That same calm energy, now right outside the door. Her sadness faded, replaced by hopeful excitement. She hurried across the small room and carefully opened the door. Standing there was a tall young man with silver hair that pointed in every direction like the quills of a hedgehog. He wore a simple mask over the lower half of his face, and one relaxed hand lifted in greeting. "Yo," he said casually. Naruko stared in surprise. Wolf-san wasn't wearing the animal mask she had imagined. The man rubbed the back of his head, looking a little embarrassed. "Ma, aren't you going to invite me in?" Naruko nodded quickly and stepped aside. The man walked inside, glancing around the tidy little apartment. He looked pleasantly surprised by how neat everything was. Naruko fidgeted with her sleeves before speaking. "Ano. Would you like some cake?" She pointed to the chocolate cake on the table. The silver-haired man studied it carefully. He had seen Naruko baking it earlier that afternoon, and he had quietly wondered how a 6-year-old managed such a thing. But he smiled beneath his mask. "Sure. Make it a big slice." Naruko's face brightened. She carefully cut a generous piece and placed it on a plate. The man took a bite. Then he paused. His visible eye widened in surprise. Naruko leaned forward nervously. "Is it okay?" After a moment, the man chuckled softly. "Ma, I think this is the best cake I've ever tasted, Naruko-chan." Her face turned pink with happiness. "Really?" "Really," he replied. Naruko beamed. For a little while, the two of them sat together quietly while he finished the cake. The room no longer felt lonely. After a moment, the man rested his elbow on the table. "So, Naruko-chan," he said thoughtfully, "mind telling me how you knew I was there?" Naruko looked down at her hands. I've known for a while. How long is a while? Since you saved me, she answered honestly. The man blinked. You've been able to sense me since you were 5? Naruko nodded. I can feel people's chakra, she explained. The man stared at her for a moment before his eye curved into a smile. Ma. It seems you're a natural chakra sensor. Naruko tilted her head. What's that? Oh, the man said, straightening slightly. I guess I forgot to introduce myself. He tapped his chest lightly. My name is Kakashi. Kakashi Hatake. Naruko blinked again. That's your name? He nodded. And a chakra sensor, he continued, is someone who can feel where other people are by sensing their chakra. Naruko listened carefully, though the explanation was a little tricky for her. Different people use it in different ways, Kakashi added gently. Naruko tried repeating the word. Ent? Kakashi chuckled softly. Different just means everyone is a little unique. Naruko thought about that for a moment, then smiled. I like that. Kakashi looked at the small girl sitting proudly beside her homemade birthday cake. For the first time that evening, Naruko didn't feel alone at all. And quietly, Kakashi made a promise to himself. From now on, Naruko Uzumaki would always have someone to share her birthday cake with. It changes, Kakashi said with a gentle smile in his eye when Naruko's face brightened with understanding. The girl soaked up knowledge like a sponge, just like her sensei. There aren't many people with that talent, which means you're special, Naruko-chan. Naruko frowned slightly. Special? She didn't really like that word. She already felt strange enough sometimes. Kakashi noticed the little crease between her eyebrows and quickly corrected himself. I mean you're talented, he said calmly. Soon you'll probably be able to sense presences even better than I can. That made the blonde girl beam with delight. Kakashi had given her so much praise that she couldn't stop the warm, bubbly happiness rising in her chest. Naruko couldn't remember the last time someone had spoken to her like that. It felt nice, really nice, to be noticed. Ma, look at the time, Kakashi said, glancing toward the window. Hate to say it, but I've got to go. Ah. Okay, Naruko replied. Kakashi frowned slightly. A little shadow had fallen across her cheerful face. He didn't like the quiet disappointment in her voice. For a moment he considered staying longer, but he was already very late for a meeting with the Hokage. I'll come back when I can, he said. He didn't give a specific day. His schedule was always unpredictable. Still, Naruko's expression brightened immediately. You promise? She asked shyly. Kakashi thought the hopeful look on her face was rather adorable. Yeah, he said. I promise. He gently ruffled her bright hair and gave a playful wink. Johnny. In a swirl of leaves, Kakashi vanished through the window. Naruko stared at the empty space with wide eyes. So. Cool. From that moment on, the blonde girl had found herself a brand new hero. Kakashi, I'm surprised. You're unusually early. The Hokage and several Jonin in the room looked quite shocked. The third Hokage, Hiruzen, tried to hide his surprise behind a calm expression, though he was clearly puzzled about one thing. Kakashi had entered through the window again. What was wrong with using the door? Ma, I'm early? Kakashi said lazily. I thought I was late. Otherwise, he might have spent a little more time talking with Naruko. By an hour, Hiruzen replied. We were prepared to wait another 2. Several Jonin chuckled quietly. Kakashi recognized his friends Genma and Guy and casually walked over to sit between them. My eternal rival, Guy exclaimed happily. Your youthful timing has saved the day. I feared I would miss the festival. Kakashi sighed softly inside his mask at his friend's dramatic way of speaking, though he secretly appreciated Guy's cheerful spirit. Kakashi said calmly. Sorry, Guy. Did you say something? It worked exactly as expected. My eternal rival is so cool and hip, Guy declared with sparkling enthusiasm. Kakashi quietly leaned a little closer to Genma while Guy sniffled with emotional pride. Even when he wasn't crying, Guy could be quite overwhelming. But Kakashi's thoughts had already wandered back to the small apartment where Naruko lived. By the end of the meeting, he planned to speak with the Hokage about an idea he had been considering. He had stepped away from his secret missions a few days earlier and had been quietly keeping an eye on Naruko during his free time. At first it had just been a duty. Now it had become something more. He was worried about her, especially today. After all, It was her birthday. As Kakashi remembered the very first day he watched the little girl from afar, he felt a faint twist of discomfort in his chest. Back then, he hadn't liked Naruko. It was a painful truth, but still a truth. After the terrible night when the nine-tailed fox attacked the village, Kakashi had been relieved to see that a small part of his teacher still remained in the world. Naruko carried something connected to two people Kakashi had deeply respected. But when he learned that the very creature responsible for so much sadness had been sealed inside her, his heart had recoiled in confusion and anger. It had felt unfair. Like fate was playing a strange trick. For a time, he looked at Naruko and saw only the burden she carried. Even though he knew that way of thinking wasn't right, his feelings had clouded his judgment. Everything began to change once he started truly observing her. He noticed the little things. How small she looked for her age. How she sometimes went without enough food. Yet whenever she passed a stray animal, she always broke off a piece of her meal to share with it. He saw how the owners of Ichiraku Ramen treated her kindly. At first he thought they were just being polite. But over time it became clear they genuinely cared about the cheerful girl. Eventually Kakashi understood why. Naruko's kindness was bright and steady, like a small lantern that refused to go out. Once he saw her help a woman pick up groceries that had fallen across the street. Naruko gathered each item carefully and handed them back with a friendly smile. Unfortunately, the woman reacted with fear and shouted harshly. The crowd grew noisy, and Naruko ran all the way home. She shut the door behind her and cried for a long time. Kakashi had watched from the rooftop, feeling helpless. He couldn't reveal himself, and the sight of the lonely child reminded him too much of the people he had lost. Still, Naruko never stopped trying to be kind. That was what truly changed Kakashi's heart. By the time the meeting ended, the Jonin slowly began leaving the room. Kakashi? Hiruzen said gently. The silver-haired ninja had been sitting quietly for several minutes. Is it Naruko? Is she all right? The Hokage cared deeply about the young girl and worried about her future, especially with the academy starting soon. He hoped the other children would treat her kindly. Kakashi stood and made sure they were alone. Ah, sorry, he said. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about her. Hiruzen raised an eyebrow. I'd like to ask if you could visit her later today, Kakashi continued. It's her birthday, Hokage-sama. A warm smile appeared on Hiruzen's face. Of course, he said kindly. I was planning to stop by soon anyway. Is there something else? Kakashi hesitated for a moment. Before I say anything, could we keep this conversation quiet for now? Until I figure a few things out. Hiruzen straightened slightly. Kakashi rarely spoke so carefully. I will, the Hokage promised. Kakashi nodded. Well, Naruko has a special ability, he explained. She's a censor. And she's very curious about learning. She's been studying scrolls on her own. Hiruzen blinked in surprise. That is impressive. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head. What I'm trying to say is, I'd like to help train her. Not instead of the academy, just extra lessons. Like an apprenticeship. Hiruzen quietly puffed on his pipe while thinking. I would be happy to support that, he said slowly, but I would need to inform the village council. Apprenticeship often comes with guardianship responsibilities. Kakashi understood the concern. Some members of the council might not agree. Still, he looked determined. Because deep down, Kakashi believed something very simple. Naruko deserved someone who believed in her. Kakashi studied the small child standing in the middle of the tidy little apartment. The sunlight coming through the window made Naruko Uzumaki's bright blonde hair glow like a patch of warm sunshine. She looked determined, but a little worried too. He gave a gentle sigh and rested a hand on her shoulder. It might be hard, Kakashi admitted, but all you need to do is be yourself. Naruko blinked. Just me? Just you, he said with a small smile behind his mask. That should be more than enough. She straightened up proudly. Okay. I can do that. Kakashi chuckled softly. Naruko had a way of filling the room with energy, even when she was standing perfectly still. Good, he said. Now come with me. Naruko grabbed her little orange jacket and hurried after him. A moment later, Kakashi used a quick transportation technique, and the two of them appeared outside a tall building where the village leaders worked. Naruko looked up with wide eyes. Whoa! This place is huge. It is, Kakashi replied. But don't worry. We're only visiting one office. They walked through the quiet hallway until Kakashi stopped at a wooden door. He knocked politely. "Come in," came the voice from inside. Kakashi opened the door and stepped in. Naruko followed closely behind, peeking around his side. Inside sat Koharu, surrounded by neat stacks of scrolls and papers. She looked up from her desk with a thoughtful expression. "So this is the child," she said. Naruko stepped forward, remembering Kakashi's advice. "Be yourself." She gave a cheerful bow. "Hello. I'm Naruko Uzumaki," she said brightly. "It's really nice to meet you." Koharu blinked once, clearly surprised by the enthusiastic greeting. Naruko clasped her hands behind her back and rocked on her heels. "I helped clean the park today," she added proudly. "There were so many leaves. But it looked really pretty afterward." Koharu set her brush down slowly. "You cleaned the park?" she asked. Naruko nodded eagerly. "Yep. The wind kept blowing the leaves everywhere, but that just made it more fun." Kakashi watched quietly from the side of the room. Naruko didn't seem nervous anymore. She was simply talking the way she always did, open, honest, and full of excitement about even the smallest things. Koharu studied the girl carefully. "And why," she asked calmly, "do you think Kakashi brought you here today?" Naruko tilted her head. Maybe because he thought we could be friends?" she guessed. Kakashi almost coughed behind his mask. Koharu raised an eyebrow. "Friends?" Naruko nodded with complete sincerity. "Well, you look really busy," she explained, pointing to the piles of paperwork. "And busy people probably don't get to go outside much. But if you ever want to, I know a really nice spot near the training field where the trees make lots of shade." The office fell quiet. Kakashi waited, unsure what Koharu would say. Then, very slowly, the elder leaned back in her chair. "You are a very unusual child, Naruko Uzumaki." Naruko grinned. "Thanks. I try my best." For a moment, Koharu simply looked at her. The girl standing in front of her didn't seem like someone dangerous or troublesome. She seemed like a small bundle of sunshine who wanted to share her favorite shady tree with the world. Koharu glanced at Kakashi. "So," she said, folding her hands on the desk, "this is the child you wanted me to meet?" Kakashi nodded respectfully. "Yes, Koharu-sama." Naruko looked between them, curious but patient. Koharu gave a quiet hum of thought. "Well," she said at last, "since she came all this way, I suppose I can spare a little time to talk." Naruko's face lit up like a lantern. "Really?" Koharu allowed the smallest hint of a smile. "Yes," she said. "Really." And for the first time that day, the office felt just a little bit warmer. "Ah, well, I'm sure you'll be able to do it." Kakashi smiled reassuringly, and Naruko calmed down almost instantly. Bring some of the cake." He walked over to the girl's wardrobe and picked out a clean, deep blue sweater. "And put this on. I'll be waiting outside." He gave a playful salute and slipped out through the window. "So cool," Naruko whispered excitedly. Her new friend was the best. They arrived outside the Hokage Tower in a little under half an hour. Naruko was bundled up in her puffy orange coat, an unusual color choice, perhaps, but somehow it suited her perfectly. The streets were quiet because most of the villagers had gathered in the center of town for the evening celebration. Even so, the air was chilly, and the wind nipped at her cheeks. It felt like an unusual kind of weather for a child's birthday. Kakashi," Naruko asked, craning her neck upward to see the tall ninja beside her, "who exactly are we meeting?" She had to tilt her head at a rather uncomfortable angle to see his face. Still, she couldn't help thinking his silver hair looked pretty amazing in the sunset. "An elder," Kakashi replied calmly. "So remember to be respectful." He folded his hands behind his back and gave a thoughtful nod. "And try to look especially polite. Those bright eyes of yours are very convincing." "Huh?" Naruko blinked in confusion. Kakashi chuckled softly. He wasn't really joking, though. Naruko's wide blue eyes reminded him so strongly of his late teacher that it sometimes made him pause for a moment. The pair stepped inside the Hokage Tower and walked down the hallway toward Koharu's office. Kakashi rested a protective hand on Naruko's head as they passed a few busy staff members. When they reached the door across from the elder's office, he crouched slightly so he could speak to her at eye level. "Now listen, Naruko. This woman may seem a little strict, but don't worry. Just do your best." Naruko tilted her head. "Do your best?" she repeated. Kakashi smiled behind his mask. "It means keep trying and be kind. If you're friendly, People usually notice. Understanding brightened Naruko's face. Her eyes filled with determination. Okay. I can do this. Thanks, Kakashi, she said sincerely before stepping forward and knocking gently on the door. Come in, came a firm voice from inside. The tone made Naruko pause for half a second, but it only strengthened her resolve. By the end of this meeting, she decided, she would make a good impression. Kakashi opened the door for her, and they both stepped inside. Koharu looked up from her desk and adjusted her glasses. Her gaze lingered briefly on Kakashi before she spoke. Hatake-san, please wait outside. Ah, of course. I'll be right by the door, Kakashi replied. He hesitated for a moment, then gave Naruko a gentle pat on the head before stepping out. Okay, Naruko said brightly. Once the door closed, she turned back to the elder with a shy smile. At first glance, the woman seemed calm and quiet, but Naruko noticed her straight posture and serious expression. She decided it was best to be extra respectful. Naruko bowed politely. Hello, Koharu-sama. Sit down, Uzumaki, Koharu said. Naruko sat in the chair across from her desk and carefully placed the plastic container she had been carrying in front of the elder. I brought you some cake, she said. I cut it into small pieces in case you didn't have a fork. Thank you, Koharu replied. Naruko blinked at the stiff answer. The room felt a little awkwardly quiet for a moment, so she tried her brightest smile. Why don't you try some? Koharu opened the container and picked up a small piece of chocolate cake. When she tasted it, her eyebrows lifted slightly in surprise. This is very good, Uzumaki. If I may ask, where did you get it? Naruko beamed with pride. I baked it, she said happily. Koharu raised an eyebrow. You did? Did Kakashi help? Nope. I made it all by myself. I really like baking. Her cheerful voice filled the quiet office, and Koharu felt herself warming to the girl's friendly energy. That's impressive, the elder admitted. Naruko grinned again. 2 compliments in one day? This was turning out to be the best birthday ever. Thank you. Not many people have tried my cooking before, she said thoughtfully, tapping her chin. I think you'd like my cookies too. I'll bring some next time. That would be acceptable, Koharu said with a small nod. It's my birthday today, Naruko added. Koharu already knew that, but she decided to play along. Oh? Did you receive anything nice? Naruko thought for a moment. Well, Gigi gave me some scrolls, she said. Then her smile widened. And I made a friend. Kakashi is really, really nice. He liked my cake too. Koharu watched the bright, hopeful girl across the desk. For a moment, her serious expression softened. That sounds like a very good birthday indeed. Naruko decided she liked the lady. The elder woman seemed a little intimidating, and she did not look very friendly at first. But Naruko had a special talent. She could sense chakra, and the lady's chakra felt warm and comforting. Being the open and cheerful child she was, Naruko decided to say what she was thinking. You know, she said thoughtfully, you have really nice chakra. She paused for a moment, trying to find the right words. The feeling was bright and warm, but it was hard to explain. It kind of reminds me of summer, Naruko added. Pardon? The elder woman asked, clearly surprised. She blinked several times. Of all the things she expected a young girl to say, that was not one of them. Naruko froze for a moment when she noticed the change in the woman's tone, then smiled shyly. Kakashi says I'm a chakra sensor, she explained. The elder, Koharu, shook her head slowly. This child was full of surprises. A 6-year-old who loved cooking, who held a powerful spirit inside her, and now a chakra sensor as well. Well, Koharu said carefully, that is quite a rare talent. Naruko's face brightened immediately. Thank you, she said happily. Then her eyebrows scrunched together as she thought hard about something. But I don't know why it reminds me of summer, she admitted. Koharu considered this for a moment. What does Hatake-san's chakra remind you of? She asked. Naruko tilted her head and thought carefully. A storm, she said at last. A big thunderstorm. Koharu nodded slowly. The comparison made sense in its own imaginative way. Everyone has something called an elemental affinity, Koharu explained gently. Mine is fire. Oh, Naruko said, nodding as she tried to understand. And Hatake-san's is lightning. Naruko's blue eyes suddenly lit up with excitement. Oh, she exclaimed. That makes sense. She grinned brightly, pleased with this new piece of knowledge. That's pretty useful, right? She asked. Indeed, Koharu replied. It can be quite an advantage. They talked for a few more minutes about small things, about learning, about chakra, and about the village. Naruko asked many curious questions, and Koharu answered more than she usually did for children. Finally, Koharu decided it was time. Hatake-san, come in, she called. The door slid open, and Kakashi stepped inside, holding a small orange book. Koharu glanced at it and shook her head slightly. I do hope you are not reading that in front of Uzumaki-san, she said. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. San? He thought to himself. This meeting had gone better than he expected. Of course not, Kakashi said calmly as he closed the book. Then he turned to Naruko with a gentle eye smile. Naruko, why don't you go visit the Sandaime for a little while? Naruko looked between the two adults uncertainly. After a moment, she nodded brightly. Okay. I'll go visit Gigi. She walked toward the door but paused for a second, glancing back at Kakashi. I'll come get you when we're finished, he assured her. Naruko's face lit up like sunshine. Okay, she said, and then she hurried off down the hall to see the kind old leader she called Gigi. Once the door closed, Koharu turned a serious look toward Kakashi. Well, Hatake-san, she said. I have met her. Now tell me, what exactly are you planning? Kakashi remained calm. Did you like her? He asked. Koharu hesitated. She certainly would not admit too easily that she found the girl rather charming. She was not what I expected, she said at last. Kakashi nodded. She surprises people, he replied quietly. There was a brief pause before he added in a cooler tone, especially for someone many people misunderstand. Koharu sighed. I admit I have not always been supportive, she said honestly. The spirit sealed inside her is powerful. It requires careful responsibility. Naruko is not that spirit, Kakashi said firmly. Koharu blinked slightly at the strength in his voice. My, you do seem quite attached to her, she observed. Kakashi said nothing. I wonder why that is, Koharu continued thoughtfully. I have been watching over her, Kakashi replied. Koharu studied him carefully. She does look familiar, you know, she said. I sometimes wonder if the Sandaime has been keeping secrets. Kakashi paused, but he did not answer directly. It seems you have reached your own conclusions, he said. Koharu rubbed her temple slowly. That girl is becoming more interesting by the minute, she murmured. A censor, great potential. And the spirit she carries. So it seems, Kakashi replied. He added gently but seriously, please remember that some of this information must remain secret. Koharu nodded. Very well. But tell me one thing, Hatake-san, she said. What do you want? Kakashi answered without hesitation. I want to train her. Koharu blinked in surprise. At first thought, I would say no, she admitted. Kakashi folded his arms calmly, waiting. But, she continued, you have clearly thought about this. Kakashi nodded. I believe Naruko has great potential, he said. And she deserves someone who will guide her carefully. Koharu considered this for a long moment. The cheerful girl with the bright smile had certainly left an impression. Well, Koharu said finally, if she is to learn, she must be guided wisely. Kakashi gave a small nod. Of course. Far away in the village, Naruko was already chatting happily with the Sandaime, sharing stories and asking endless questions. And though she did not know it yet, a new chapter of learning and adventure was about to begin. The evening sun painted the rooftops of the Hidden Leaf village in soft shades of gold. Inside a quiet office, two shinobi sat across from one another, speaking in calm but serious voices. Kakashi Hatake rested his hands lightly on the table as he spoke. Kushina Uzumaki, the former Jinchuriki, once told me that the only way to overcome the Nine Tails' hate is with love. Across from him, Elder Koharu listened carefully. Kakashi continued, his voice steady. Naruko needs this. She has no one. The council made very sure of that. Koharu looked down at the papers on her desk. For a moment, an unfamiliar feeling stirred in her heart. It wasn't as if she had wanted the child to grow up lonely, but she could not deny that her decisions had played a part. I have always tried to do what is best for Konoha as a whole, Koharu said quietly. If that meant protecting the village from the Nine Tails, I believed it was necessary. Even if it made one child's life harder. Kakashi tilted his head slightly. That is a very heavy choice to carry. The room grew still for a moment before Koharu spoke again. So, she said, folding her hands together, what exactly do you propose? How would you train her? Kakashi's visible eye curved slightly with a small smile. Members of the Uzumaki clan are known for their strong chakra, he explained. Naruko already shows signs of sensing different chakra signatures. If she learns ninjutsu and tracking skills together, she could become something truly special. Koharu raised an eyebrow thoughtfully. Perhaps even as skilled as one of the legendary Sannin someday? She asked. It's possible, Kakashi replied. But only if someone helps her grow properly. Koharu studied him for a moment. And you believe that someone should be you? I do, Kakashi said simply. He leaned back in his chair. Think about the academy teachers, he continued. Many of them remember the night of the Nine Tails attack. Some might struggle to treat Naruko fairly. I cannot risk her potential being ignored. Koharu slowly nodded. She understood the truth in his words. Kakashi went on, I'm a tracker myself. Naruko already shows the beginnings of that talent. With guidance, and perhaps one day even the help of my Ninken partners, she could become an excellent shinobi who protects others. Koharu blinked in surprise. You would consider letting her learn about the Hatake summoning contract? Kakashi shrugged lightly. Our contract requires Hatake blood, so that part may not be possible. But there are many other things I can teach her. He paused before adding, I'm also close friends with the few people in the village who know about the Flying Thunder God technique. And I understand the Rasengan as well. If Naruko studies hard, she could learn amazing things. Koharu allowed herself a thoughtful smile. This is sounding very promising, she admitted. What are your plans? I'll train her most evenings after the academy, Kakashi said. Unless I'm on a mission. I want her to grow at a normal pace, but she already shows signs of being quite clever. He chuckled softly. She reminds me a lot of her father. Koharu nodded slowly. And from what I hear, she said with a small laugh, she has also inherited her mother's cooking talent. Kushina's cooking had once been famous throughout the village. During one New Year celebration, her food stall had drawn the longest line anyone could remember. Kakashi's eye curved happily. I'm guessing you liked the cake Naruko brought yesterday, he said. I did, Koharu admitted. Then she straightened slightly in her chair. Very well, Hatake. What do you need from me? Kakashi looked out the window at the peaceful village. Decisions about Naruko go through the council, he explained. I already have the Hokage's support, and many shinobi respect the idea. But I need your vote as well. Koharu shuffled the papers in front of her. You seem to have quite a bit of support already, she said. Why is my vote so important? Kakashi's gaze became serious. Because some people might want to train Naruko in a way that focuses only on power, he said. But Naruko needs guidance, kindness, and encouragement. She is a gentle child with a bright heart. Koharu could not help but smile at that. Naruko's cheerful grin was well known around the village. It had a way of making even serious adults feel lighter. Kakashi spoke softly. She deserves the chance to grow up smiling. The elder looked at him for a long moment before finally nodding. Very well, Kakashi, Koharu said. You and Naruko have my support. Outside, the evening breeze rustled through the trees of the Hidden Leaf village. And somewhere in the village streets, a bright-haired girl named Naruko was laughing happily, completely unaware that her future had just grown a little brighter. Dear YouTube family. This is all for now. Every video, every edit, and every moment shared here is a small step in a journey that grows because of your support and encouragement. Your views, comments, and feedback are what keep this channel moving forward and inspire me to keep creating better content for you. If you enjoyed today's video and want to continue being part of this journey, please like the video, share it with others who love anime, and subscribe to the channel so you never miss the adventures, stories, and creativity that Anime Dreams has to offer. Your support truly makes a difference. Until the next video, stay inspired, keep dreaming, and keep enjoying the world of anime. Thank you for being part of this community. Regards. Anime Dreams.